GolfNewsRI presents the Golf Dudes Podcast. Here are the dudes.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Golf Dudes Podcast. Hope you're all having a great Thursday today and looking forward to what should be a decent weekend, I think, as far as weather goes. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Just me today. Mostly today's episode is going to be kind of the last word on Triggs, as that process mostly came to an end on Wednesday. So we're going to get into that, some of my final thoughts, observations. We also have post meeting sound from Carl Augustine, which I know a lot of you probably already saw yesterday, but that's all right. We'll play it again today for you, and then a couple other things, and that will basically be it. But first, I should tell you that the Golf Dudes Podcast is presented by Linkstrings. Linkstrings is best known for the transfusion in a can. The transfusion is vodka, ginger ale, and grape juice, all mixed up into one refreshing beverage. Check out Linkstrings at liquor stores and country clubs near you. Of course, they do have two other flavors, the back nine and the front nine, which you should check out as well. So the Triggs saga mostly has come to an end, with FCG Associates being awarded the bid yesterday by the Parks Department at the City of Providence, 5-1. The meeting took place at the Botanical Center at Roger Williams Park, which I must say, once you find the place, and that itself is an adventure, but once you find the place, it's very nice. I think Dan McGowan tweeted they should put all city council meetings in that facility. So it was very nice. Like I said, once you find it, it's very nice. But anyways, so that happened yesterday. So that basically ends this saga. I know FCG has a couple more steps to go. They have to negotiate a contract with the park superintendent, Wendy Nilsson, and then they have to then that contract has to be approved by the board of contract and supply. So they still have two steps left, but from what I'm told, and it should be from what I'm told, that's basically, those things are basically a formality. So for all intents and purposes, as far as we're concerned, the Triggs situation is over. I know a lot of people are disappointed. FCG got the bid just by looking at the comments on our Facebook page and even our Instagram account. So, but that is how it broke down, 5-1 in favor of FCG. The only one who voted to deny was Councilman Igliozzi. So there's that. So a couple things on this whole process as we kind of wrap up and kind of give the last word here on this story, which I thought was a big story in Rhode Island golf. The first thing is, one, it was fascinating to cover it. It was fascinating to follow kind of the documents. It was fascinating to follow. It was fascinating to be at the meeting yesterday. I know I saw a few people turn out, so it was great to see people there. So the whole process was fascinating. Obviously, we got a lot of content out of it, which is great. It all did really well. The comments and the amount of interaction on our posts, both on Facebook and Instagram, was tremendous, was through the roof. I was looking through it yesterday or last night, thinking, holy crap, 30 comments and 40 comments, and kind of crazy. So anyway, so thank you everybody for that. So thanks for interacting with the post, but I thought it was a fascinating process. I know a lot of people are disappointed that FCG got the bid, but that's just how it played out. A couple of things on the meeting yesterday, and then we'll get into the post game, if you will, reaction from Carl, who we talked to just after the meeting ended yesterday. A couple things on the meeting. So Igliozzi was the one that was pushing for the thing to be tabled. He didn't think they should have voted yesterday. They wanted to move it and push it back however long, to do more research. Narducci wanted the vote and he wanted FCG to win. And Lorza kind of was in between. And that was kind of the conflict of the whole thing right there. The three women on the panel, not Wendy Nilsson, the other three women, really didn't say much on this particular topic the entire day or the entire time, which was interesting. So it was really just like a 2 or 3 person show, depending on how you want to count Lorza. Uh, it was really, I mean, he kind of started out, he really kind of was bashing FCG associates. He was bashing kind of the course, and really being critical of it. Talking about money and how these guys are millionaires. And then Carl came back and said, "Well, I'm not really a millionaire, but I wish I was." Whatever his comment was. So that was kind of an interesting back and forth. I did think that some of the things that Uzi said were interesting, or would have been interesting. He had suggested that they table the vote, so meaning they don't vote yesterday. He was suggesting that they table the vote and they have like a public forum where the 3 bidders, so Riga, FCG, and Northeast Golf Company, all come. They all give like formal presentations of their proposal and their ideas and their history and background, whatever, the whole thing. And then it kind of goes to a vote, sort of, after that, maybe not that day, but in the days and weeks after that kind of presentation. And so his idea was this public forum and this public presentation. And I was sitting there. I was obviously, we streamed it live, and it came out decent. Sorry about the audio. The audio wasn't great, but not sure what else I could have done. Anyways, and I was like, wow, that'd be kind of cool if they did that. If they did like a public presentation type of thing. I mean, I don't know if the bidders thought would have been cool, but for content purposes, I thought it would have been great. So that was the only thing I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. But that obviously didn't happen, or isn't going to happen. And so that's kind of where he stood on the thing. Most of the day, he was questioning the commission. He was questioning the scoring, saying that the scoring was really subjective, which I know somebody else pointed out on our Instagram page. And he was saying, what's the difference between FCG getting a 5 here and Riga getting a 3 here, or Riga getting a 5 here, or FCG getting a 4 here, or whatever it is, whatever the numbers were that he was referencing. But I did think he made obviously some good points. I think everybody kind of made good points. That Narducci referenced, I believe, a Providence Firefighters tournament that he held there earlier this year, that the course was in great shape. I thought the course was in great shape when we played it, as I wrote about in our course review a couple months ago, I guess, whatever that was. I thought this is as good a shape as Triggs as I've ever seen Triggs in. But not that I play it all the time, but so that was kind of the back and forth there. That was interesting. The thing that I was kind of confused about a little bit. So Riga's press release came out last Wednesday, obviously, as we reported, and they talked about a public hearing. That there's going to be a public hearing on Wednesday. So then we break the news that FCG is going to be awarded the bid. We broke that Sunday night. While all you were watching football, I was grinding. Just saying, no, I'm just kidding. I was watching football too. So we broke that Sunday night. FCG getting the bid. So that kind of, and then looking at the agenda, seems like just a regular meeting agenda. It said nothing about any hearings or anything like that. And FCG was going to get the bid. So essentially, barring a complete 180, that was going to happen. So then Monday morning, I called the city of Providence. Actually, I emailed the city of Providence. And Wendy Nilsson was nice enough to call me back within minutes. And I asked her about, is this a public hearing? Is this, public comment? Whatever. What's the, that's what we were told. And she says there's not a public hearing. There's gonna be no public testimony, no public comment. They already have enough information to make the decision. I said, okay, because we had a press release last week saying it was a public hearing. And she said, I said, well, that wasn't from us, meaning that wasn't from the city of Providence. So I said, okay. So we put that story up to clarify what exactly was going on Wednesday morning at the meeting. Again, at the very nice Botanical Center, once you can find it. So then we get to the meeting, and they go through it, and they get to the Triggs thing, and Alonso says there will be time for a public comment. There'll be limited public comment. I think they were ending it at 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it was. So then I was kind of confused as to what happened, if they changed their mind, if Wendy perhaps just didn't really know. So I was a little confused on that. So if that article prevented people from wanting to go because they weren't going to let their voice be heard, then I apologize. I was a little confused myself, but they did allow public comment and public testimony for the Riga bid. I mean, excuse me, for the Triggs bid. So again, I was a little bit confused on that. I don't know if we screwed that up or if the city council people kind of changed their mind on that, or what exactly the deal was, but that was a little confusing to me. So Bob Ward spoke. I thought he gave a great sort of brief presentation. Talked about fixing the parking lot and fixing that little walkway near that leads to the pro shop where the tree root like sticks out. I'm sure if you guys have all been to Triggs, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So he talked about fixing that stuff up. Talk about breaking your ankle in the parking lot, which was kind of funny. Not like haha funny, but anyway, so he gave I think he gave a good presentation. The Burke Fund's Peter O'Neill spoke on behalf of Riga. Another kid from the community, I don't know if the kid wasn't really a kid, but community member spoke, talking about how Riga has reached out to kind of inner city kids and tries to do a good job of teaching them golf, whether it's at Buttonhole or whatever. So he spoke, and then obviously Carl Augustine, I believe he was the last one to speak. And he kind of came up and somewhat defended himself, because he was kind of, like I said, Igliozzi was really kind of bashing him, bashing FCG, at least throughout the first part of the meeting. It was funny. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, "Boy, if you didn't watch to the end and see the vote, you would have thought the thing was going to be tabled," because that's kind of how it was looking for a while, and I was getting a little nervous that it was going to be tabled and our story would have been wrong. But so Carl came up to defend himself. Talked about the changes they made to Triggs. Obviously, they added a driving range and a handful of other things. He talked about infrastructure changes that people can't see, and this and all this stuff. So I think Bob Ward and Carl both gave good speeches, a good brief presentations, if you will. And obviously, once Bob spoke, you knew Carl, or you didn't know, but Carl had to get up and say something. So it was kind of interesting, the interesting back and forth there between kind of how this all plays out. So and then after that, there was some more discussion. Then they decided to vote on it, and obviously FCG wins 5-1, with only Igliozzi denying. Everybody else voted for. Narducci introduced the motion to approve. It was seconded, and then 5 out of the 6 or whatever said, agreed with it. So, and that was kind of the end of it. It kind of just ended kind of abruptly. So it was a fascinating situation. I still think there could be more fallout. I still think it's going to be interesting to keep track of going forward. And we did talk to Carl Augustine afterward, and we asked him, and I said we, meaning I was there, the Boston Globe was there, Dan York was there, and that's pretty much it. So we talked to Carl afterward for a little while in the Botanical Center, and here is what he kind of had to say. I know a lot of you are prior to seen this little package as I put it up yesterday, but here is Carl Augustine talking on a variety of topics regarding Triggs, Riga, and his legacy after yesterday's victory for FCG.
Well, this has been a very stressful ordeal for me for the last several months. I mean, I even before the RFP came out, I knew it was coming out. I didn't know what was in it, but I knew it. So, leading up to that, and then putting together what we thought was a very, very good plan in our bid package, and then going through the meetings and everything else we had to do. It's been a lot of work. John doesn't play golf, so I don't think he ever goes out on the golf course. He's never been on the golf course. So when he comes in and sees all the repair work and improvements that need to be done at the entrance to the parking lots and all that, I can't really say I fault him for his impression, right? But that ignores all of the good things about the property and all the investments we made over the years. As I stated there, I mean, just within this last, 10 years ago, there was no practice range, and the maintenance facility, if you could have seen it, was a disaster. So we invested well over $1 million in redoing all that. But Joe Golfer, John Igliosi, the councilman, they don't know that. They don't see it. But if we didn't do that work, then we couldn't maintain the golf course. I have no animosity for Bob Wood, although, all the propaganda and rhetoric from the last several days has bothered me. I think there was some conflicts of interest that he sidestepped. Huge conflicts of interest. Okay, so what if you owned and operated another daily fee golf course, public golf course, and were a member of the Rhode Island Golf Association? Now the Rhode Island Golf Association, and by the way, that association is an association of clubs. I think there's 54 total members, roughly 24, 25 of public daily fee courses. So if I owned so-and-so golf course down the street, there is a limited market of players, a pool of players in the state of Rhode Island that play public golf courses. We, in a very pretty friendly way, myself and Mike Lombardi at Cranston and John Renaud, who was here from North Kingstown, and all the other public golf courses, we compete for those players and for that business every day, in the outing business and in all the ancillary businesses. Now the Rhode Island Golf Association says they want to step in, take over a public golf course, and compete with me, and compete with all the other public golf courses in the state. To me, that's a giant conflict of interest. There's important, the game of golf is self-regulated, right? You go on the golf course, you have multiple opportunities to cheat if you're playing a match with somebody, right? But you use your honesty, integrity, character, says, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play this game the way it's supposed to be played, right? Well, that carries up to the administration of the golf business, certainly the Rhode Island Golf Association. But then I have to question sometimes the character and integrity of somebody who just throws aside all the public golf courses in the state. Says, I don't care about you. I'm gonna jump in and compete with you, and put the entire weight of the Rhode Island Golf Association behind that. Is that fair? I don't know. To me, it's not. To me, it's a huge mistake.
Sorry.
I've been at Triggs for 32 years, right? So there are things that have to be improved there. Obvious things. I don't deny that. We've invested over the years in a series of infrastructure improvements there that we prioritize with the city. The biggest issue, obviously, is the parking lots, right? I mean, that's so obvious that they have to be. That's not a maintenance problem. It's a capital improvement program. They have to be totally gutted and resurfaced, right? As a legacy for me, I really want to see through all these improvements that we propose and bring Triggs to the next level. You know, make it, as Bob Wood said, top 5 in the country. I think we can do that.
And welcome back to the Golf Dudes podcast. That was Carl Augustine, the manager and operator of Triggs. He's really kind of become, the face of Triggs, if you will, over the last 30 plus years. We talked to him again after the meeting yesterday. So interesting comments. We did ask the Riga question because I do think that's kind of a concern for people in general. And it'll be interesting to see if and when Riga goes back there for tournaments. So there'll be something to keep an eye on. Now, maybe, like I said, maybe maybe there won't be any issues and it'll just kind of eventually go back to normal. That's possible. But I do think it's something at least worth watching. And if nothing comes out of it, nothing comes out of it. But I do think that's worth watching, and that's going to be kind of the focus of the future of that relationship. As far as changes, Carl's talked about in that piece. He talked about how obviously the course needs things to be fixed, and he needs to make changes. And he has to. The parking lot is obviously a big one that people keep harping on, and a few other things. And he's looking forward to seeing that through. In the meeting, the city council members said that they're going to monitor it and do all these things and have random checks and all these other things. Who knows if they're really going to do that? I mean, again, I'm learning with all of you for the most part. So who knows if that's really going to happen? But I think I'm working on a way to at least kind of check or figuring out how this can be monitored. Because I do think it's interesting. I do think it's important to make sure these bidders are fulfilling the RFP. There's an RFP requirement. You have to spend, or you have to make at least $1 million in renovations to the property, to the course, to the facility, whatever. So I do think that would be interesting to track. I don't know how you can really track it, because I don't know all the ins and outs of Triggs, like probably a lot of you do. But I do think it'd be something to keep an eye on in the coming years. So that is that. But FCG gets the bid, and to a lot of people's disappointment, obviously, judging by comments on our page. But that's kind of last word on that. Like I said, there are 2 more steps that FCG has to go through. They do have to negotiate the contract, and they have to and then the contract has to be approved by the contractor board and supply. But for what I'm told, that is basically a formality for the most part, maybe a little more than a formality. So there is that. And that's pretty much what we have with the Triggs stuff. A couple quick notes. Shout out to the group of Kevin Blazer, Mike Loonsberry, Mike Hamilton, and Derek Audette. They finished tied for the McCormick shootout last week at Triggs. It was a pretty epic finish. There was no tiebreakers, but pretty epic finish for sure. Talking to Blazer, he estimated there are about 20 to 25 birdies made between the 4 of them. So that's pretty impressive. So that's that. Other news going on: college golf season, or the fall season's wrapping up. So we'll be kind of wrapping up coverage with that. And also next week is a big week. Next week's November, right? Yeah. Next week is the final stage qualifying for Q School. Obviously, Davis Chatfield is in it. So we'll have full coverage of that. Chatfield, so it's a little confusing. Chatfield already has his Corn Ferry Tour card. He just has to tee it up in the final stage. You can't just, go through the first 2 stages and then, to get your card and then skip the final stage. You have to at least tee it up in the final stage. And so in the final stage, he's playing for like premium membership on the Corn Ferry Tour. I think about the top 40 players or so will get that. And that just means he can basically get into whatever tournament he wants for the most part. So that's basically what that means. But he does have his Corn Ferry Tour card. He does have some, obviously, security But this should be interesting. I'm sure it'll be a 10-10 again. But he is playing next week, and we'll obviously have full coverage of that on GolfNewsRI.com. And then lastly, we started our fitness series with Michael Edwards, and we're going to play that for you to kind of close out the show. And thanks, Eric, for following it. I believe we're shooting episode 2 on Monday, if I'm not mistaken, and then that'll be out in November. So thanks to everybody on that. So without further ado, actually, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a commercial break here, and then when we come back, it'll be episode 1, excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself. Episode 1 of Fit for Golf with Michael Edwards. Enjoy. Billy Andre joins the show. Billy, thanks so much for doing this, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm very excited to be joined by an 11-time Emmy Award winner, and that is Armin Katayan.
Massachusetts Women's Amateur Champion Allison Paik.
The days of the country club just being golf and maybe one amenity are gone. Unfortunately, Metacomet doesn't have those.
He has a very rare condition called kyphoscoliotic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And at the time of diagnosis, there was only 60 documented cases in the world.
When we legitimately played the last 4 holes at Newport National, you could not see 50 yards. Everybody, I'm Michael Edwards, physical therapist and owner of Shore Golf Performance and Physical Therapy. In my 6th year of practice as a physical therapist, treat everything orthopedic and musculoskeletal related, especially working with the golfer. That's my niche. I'm super pumped about doing this video series with Joe and GolfNewsRI. So we got some great things planned for you as we go into the off season. Every month, we're going to post one video, roughly about 5 minutes long, give or take a minute or 2. And we're going to kind of walk along the off-season training program. So for next month will be kind of what you should be doing in the off-season. And then what we'll go through in December will kind of be where you'll be at in that stage of the off-season training program. Now, also keep in mind that the off-season training program is going to look a lot different from a professional golfer to a recreational golfer like myself and probably most people who are watching this, and the majority of people. Today's session is more of just kind of setting the stage. So setting the expectations and laying out the agenda, the curriculum for what's to come in the coming videos in the coming months. So the biggest thing today in setting the stage is, do you even know what an off-season training program looks like for the golfer? My high-level view is, one is finding out, what are your limitations, right? Or making you aware of where do you stand physically, but also even technically. So that's where just really the value comes in of working with a physical therapist, a medical provider who is trained in working with golfers. So I've treated recreational golfers all the way up to professional PGA Tour players and everything in between. And so, but also having a technical coach or PGA professional also to evaluate you, and just kind of both of those minds working together with you to build that foundation so that we all know where your starting point is, and then so we can be specific as we move forward on things that we can work on. So from there, next month we'll talk on different screens and movement patterns that I assess from a physical therapy standpoint, a movement standpoint, and kind of take you through some of the most common tests and measures that I take my players and patients through. And here's a look at some of the exercises that you can expect next episode. Back to wall shoulder flexion, lat test, golf posture, 3 minute T-spine rotation, golf posture, pelvic tilt, golf posture, pelvic rotation, and full body squat. Furthermore, once we kind of go through that movement assessment, then we'll build upon that, and then we'll go through common, or I'll give you correctives to address common limitations that I typically see from a golfer. And so it may be hip strength, hip mobility, shoulder mobility, whatever it may be. I'm going to give you specific exercises that you can work on. So that month we'll be talking about mobility, strength, and stability deficits. And I'll go through again common correctives for those. And then to progress on that, we'll go through maximizing strength through within functional movement patterns. So that goes to the big 5 movement patterns. So you have your squat, your hinge, your push, your pull, and your carry. And then that month we'll go through different movements that you can do as a golfer that addresses each one of those movement patterns. And then from there, right, so we've gotten the strength. And then don't forget, when we focus on strength, you can't forget to maintain the mobility throughout each month, right? And so we'll go through that. I'll remind you of all those things, simple mobility things that you can do along the way. So then to build upon that, we'll tap into power, speed, acceleration, and then really being able to use power, speed, and acceleration within golf-specific movement patterns, right? And so really starting to train more specifically those areas in the golf swing. And so that's going to lead us into the in season, right? So now we're tapering off the off season, now going back into the in season. And then at the end, we'll start giving you things that you can do to try to maintain the gains that you made in the off season. So again, the whole goal of this video series is just to educate you, make you aware of some things that you can do to better yourself on the course, obviously, but in life as well. And just kind of give you that bird's eye view, that high level view of, okay, these are some things I need to maybe focus on and just give you some direction. And I'm here for you as always. I work at the Golf Academy of Todd Campbell. It's where my business is set up at. So I work alongside Todd Campbell. He's actually next door to me right now. So I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you. I'm sure he would as well. I can talk to you from a physical standpoint, and he can talk to you from a technical standpoint. But I really highly encourage you, if you're serious about, one, just getting better and moving better and playing better in life and on the course, to really just get an initial evaluation from a physical therapist or a medical provider who's trained in working with golfers, but then also work with a PGA professional who's also trained in working with players from a technical standpoint, and combining both of those professions and mindsets with you, the player, that's only going to make you better. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to this, and let's have some fun.
And that was episode 1 of Fit for Golf with Michael Edwards. And with that, this show is a wrap. Thanks to everybody for tuning in again. Congrats to FCG Associate on getting the bid. It was a completely fascinating process for sure. But I'm happy that it's basically over. And we can, and for our purposes, GolfNewsRI purposes, we can move on to covering golf. As much golf as there is now. So anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. We will talk to you all weekend long on GolfNewsRI.com. We have the final round of the Live Golf season this week, the team championship. So at least you have that going for you. So we'll have some coverage of that probably. And then obviously next week is big with Q School. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. Again, we'll talk to you all weekend long on GolfNewsRI.com. And we'll talk to you next week on the Golf Dudes podcast. Have a great week. Have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you soon.